Good evening, everyone. This is Ed Cranage from the Connecticut Green Bank. It looks like we got a few folks still filing in, logging on here, so we'll give it just a moment and we'll get started in about a minute or two, all right? And just to confirm here before we get started, Rudy, if you can confirm that you can hear me all right.
Yes, I can. Sounds good.
All right. Great. So we'll give it just a minute and we'll let some folks sign on and then we'll get started in a moment. All right, I think we're about hitting critical mass here. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. And special thanks to Operation Fuel for helping us put this together. So my name is Ed Cranage with the Connecticut Green Bank and welcome to Battery and Solar 101. So tonight we're going to go over the basics of solar panels and batteries for your home and how you can save money with solar and keep the lights on during a power outage with batteries. So tonight's webinar is hosted by the Connecticut Green Bank and Operation Fuel. So before we get into the presentation, we'll start with just a little bit of background about both of our organizations. So I'm going to turn it over to Kayla with OpFuel.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kayla Palalo. I'm the Communications and Program Manager at Operation Fuel. I did want to take this time to thank you all for taking time out of your day to join this webinar to learn something so important, such as ways to help become energy resilient. As some of you may know, Operation Fuel has been around since 1977. Operation Fuel has ensured equitable access to energy for all by providing year-round energy and utility assistance, promoting energy independence, and advocating for affordable energy. Again, thank you so much for all of you joining today and Green Bank for having us.
All right, thanks, Kayla. I'll turn it over to Rudy for our intro on the Green Bank.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Kayla. Thanks, everyone, for joining tonight. Just a very quick intro of the Connecticut Green Bank. We were created in 2011 through bipartisan legislation. We are a quasi-public state agency and the first state-level green bank in the country. Our mission is to confront climate change by increasing and accelerating investment into the state's green economy, creating more resilient, healthier, and equitable communities for all. Guiding this mission is our vision, a planet protected by the love of humanity.
Great, thanks, Rudy. And again, thanks to Kayla for helping us put this together. Just a quick note before we move on the agenda here. So we do have a questions box and a chat box here. So if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the question box. If there's anything that's really pressing, we'll address it right away. But for the most part, we'll get to questions at the end of the presentation. So for our agenda for this evening, well, we went through the About Us. We're going to start off with a couple of poll questions for attendees about your familiarity and kind of why you're here with regards to energy storage and batteries and solar. Then we'll go into what is energy storage and what are home batteries, and what can home batteries with solar panels do for you. And then we'll get into how do you actually get this? How do you pay for it? How do you find a contractor? How do you get started? So with there, I will jump to the next slide here. What brings you here today? And I think Rudy can get that poll going. So what brings you here today? You're interested in having backup power in case of an outage. You just want to learn about solar and battery storage, or you're just curious about clean energy and technology. Or another reason. So we'll give it just a moment, and Rudy, when you're ready, you can close that poll and we can jump to the next one. Let's see. All right, so we have about half of you want to learn about solar and battery storage. So you have come to the right place. All right, next slide here. During a power outage, what is most important to you? Keeping your refrigerator or freezer running, staying warm in the winter, cool in the summer, powering medical devices, staying in touch with loved ones, phone, internet, or safety, keeping the lights on, communication, alarm system. All right, we'll give it a second here. All right, interesting results. We usually get more folks that are interested in keeping the fridge running. We've got more here, about half of you interested in staying warm in the winter, cool in the summer. So interesting results there, and about a third of you interested in safety, lights, alarm system, communication, things like that. So great. All right, so next here, what are home batteries? The image on the left is a refrigerator, and that's just for size comparison. So what are home batteries? Well, we're all familiar with batteries in our cars, phones, and laptops. All these devices work without being plugged into the wall, right? So when you plug something into the wall, it's plugging into the electrical grid. Phones, mobile phones are designed to be used on the go, so they need a way to store that electrical energy to stay powered when they're not plugged in and connected to the grid, plugged into the wall at home. So the same goes for your house with home batteries, just on a much bigger scale. So when the electrical grid goes down in power outage during a big storm or something like that, your house has no power and nothing to run your electrical devices with. So home batteries can solve that. The battery can be charged using solar panels or using the electric grid when it's up. And when the power goes out, you'll have clean, quiet, and safe source of backup power. So you might think, well, doesn't a generator do that? And the answer is yes, it does. But the difference between solar and batteries versus a generator is that solar and batteries, clean, quiet, simple to use, plug it in, charge it up, and use it when you need it, just like any electric car or a laptop. There's no fuel, there's nothing special that you need to do to get it started. Everything's automatic and it's smart, controlled by software. So we have some examples here of common home batteries on the screen, along with a refrigerator for that approximate size comparison. These batteries can be installed in your basement or garage in some cases. Every battery is a little bit different. They all have a little bit different technical requirements for where and how they can be installed. But for the most part, if you have a basement, you're in pretty good shape. You can, if you have a basement that has access to your main service panel, that's a good start for having a battery installed at your home. And again, just for reference, each of the battery technologies that are on the screen here are, they have about 12 to 18 hours of home backup, depending on, of course, your usage, and they can all be recharged the next day when the sun comes up. So now that we've established what the batteries are, let's get into the solar 101 portion here. So we have an infographic here showing how it works. So first, the solar panels that would be installed on your roof, that you might see on your neighbor's roofs, convert sunlight into electricity using what's known as the photovoltaic effect. So it takes the energy from the light that comes down from the sun, and it kind of works its chemistry in the solar panels, and it moves electricity. That electricity from the solar panels goes into an inverter, which converts the electrical power from the solar panels into the same type of power that you use in your home. So it goes from DC, direct current, into AC, alternating current, which is the same type of electricity that you use when you plug something into your home. The inverter sends that power into your main breaker or your main circuit panel. And your house uses some of that solar power during the day as the sun is shining and as the solar system is working, and it sends back any excess to the grid. So you can just kind of follow the arrows here. So it goes from the PV down into the inverter, into the main breaker, into your light bulbs, keeps things moving during the day, and then any excess will go out to your meter and out to the grid. That meter that's installed by the utility company measures how much power is coming out of your home during the month, and the utility company will pay you for any power that you send back in the form of credits on your electric bill. So that's where the savings come in when you go solar. So, you know, assuming that what you've paid for solar panels is less than what you would pay to the electric company, then that's where the savings come in. So we'll get into a little bit about that more a little bit later. But when the sun is not shining, you know, during a storm or during the nighttime, you'll buy electricity from the grid just as usual. So your solar system works and it powers your house when it's working. But when you don't need it or when you don't have access to sunlight, your home will just pull energy from the grid as usual. So it's a grid interactive system. So you're always still going to be connected to the grid. So next, we'll go into what happens during a power outage. So if there's a storm and the power goes out, well, for most solar customers, you actually won't have access to the power that your system could be generating during that time. So if there's an outage at night and then the next day the sun comes out but the power is still out, you actually won't be able to use the electricity from your system. And there's two reasons for this. One is that it's dangerous for your solar panels to be putting power onto the grid when workers may be working on fixing power lines nearby. They may not know that the lines are energized and you can get electrocuted that way. So for safety reasons, it shuts off. The other reason is that the power that comes out of a solar panel system isn't, it's not steady enough. Think clouds and tree shading and time of day and things like that. So it can't really reliably power everything in your home. So for those two reasons, when the power is out from the grid, the solar panel system shuts off. So how do you address that? And the answer is by adding a battery to your system. So on here, you can see the power is out. These X's show that something is disconnected here. But with the addition of a battery, you can use the energy from your solar panel system, charge the battery, and then you can disconnect from the grid and you can use the energy from your battery. So you can safely disconnect from the grid during an outage and run your home on battery power for several hours. And then when the sun comes out, you can recharge that battery. So when that happens during a power outage, everything, all of these switches will happen automatically, and they'll send you over into backup mode, no action needed from you. So it's a smart system. It doesn't require a electrical engineering degree to operate. Most of them come with a little smartphone app and you can see how everything's working. So what can a home battery power for you? Well, if you have enough of them, you can power pretty much anything you want. There are very, very large commercial battery systems that can power a school or a hospital, but that's not really what we're looking at here today. We're looking at these smaller home systems. So for most of us who are limited by budget and space, you'll want to consider the loads in your house using a chart like this one. So on the top part of the chart, we have essentials, and on the lower part of the chart, we have things that I consider nice to have. So essentials are lighting, fans, keeping your phone running, keeping a well pump running, that's the faucet there, and keeping the fridge on. Some other things like heating and hot water are essential. But if you look at the left to right scale, we have low demand versus high demand. So little things like light bulbs and charging your phone or keeping the fridge running, those don't really use that much power. But when you go over to the right, you have things like a clothes dryer, central air conditioning, electric heat. Those use a whole lot of power. So you'll want to consider those two things, how important is it to you, but also how much power does it use when you think of how big of a battery you need for your home or what you want. If you run say a gas or oil furnace, that's a little bit easier decision to make because that runs on fuel, so you just need to keep a few pumps and things like that running. So they're not as high demand as something like an electric heater. So these are all questions that you can work out with a contractor when you talk about what's most important to you. So if you have, say, medical needs and there's a chair that you need to have charged or medication that you need to have refrigerated, those are important things to talk about with your contractor when they're designing a system for you. So in most cases, most of the customers who have installed batteries so far in this program have kind of gone after some of these more low demand and semi-essential things here. So on the left side, again, lighting, refrigeration, water pumps if you have a well or a sump pump, that's important to have. Probably a little bit into the heating and stove type of appliance area. But generally, most systems are pretty modest in size and they're not designed to run your house indefinitely. So something that most folks are used to in a power outage. Even if you have a generator, you're not going to really be running your whole house on full power during that time. So now we'll get into some of the benefits of having a home battery paired with solar panels versus having a generator. Because that's a big question that comes up. Why would I do this instead of getting a generator? So first here we have the portable generator, something that you can get from Home Depot or Costco for a few $100. They're pretty cheap, low upfront cost. The portable, you don't need a special installer to come and install or to come and start the generator for you, but you do need someone to install a generator hookup for you. Now on the right, we have the standby generator, which is a little bit bigger, but same general idea as a portable generator. Pretty high output. They can power a lot of things. They can power your whole home. They run on natural gas or propane, and they're on standby, so they are relatively smart. They can automatically switch between grid and off-grid mode. And then in the middle here, we have batteries, which would be paired with solar panels. The benefit there with batteries versus any type of generator is that it's completely silent. There's no fuel, no emissions. You don't have to carry cans of gas. You don't have to worry about being connected to a natural gas pipeline or having propane delivered. You can store and use your own solar energy from the panels on your roof. It's also on standby, so it automatically switches over in the event of an outage. And really the best benefit that batteries have that generators don't is that there are rebates available through the Green Bank and through your utility company, and even some federal tax credits. So we'll get into the incentives a little bit later. But just to be fair here, we'll talk about the drawbacks comparing a home battery with solar versus a generator. So portable generator, you have to buy and transport fuel. It's loud, high emissions. They can be dangerous. It's essentially a small gas engine that can put out some harmful emissions if you're not careful. It requires maintenance. Excuse me, maintenance. It's not on standby, and there's no incentives. No cash incentives through the utility for them. Drawbacks of a standby generator. You have to have it professionally installed. There's a fuel supply and cost involved in that. So once it's installed, you still have to pay for every bit of fuel that it uses. There's permitting, maintenance, it's not portable, and there's no incentives. And then again, just to be fair here, drawbacks of battery storage with solar panels. It can be expensive and there is an upfront cost associated with it. But again, with incentives and with some financing available, it can be made pretty affordable for most folks. And that's the primary goal of what the Green Bank and Eversource and UI are doing in our energy storage solutions program, is making it accessible and affordable primarily to those who need it most. So that's a major aim of this program is to make battery storage affordable to everyone. Again, next, it needs professional installation, which requires finding a contractor. You have to go through interconnection and permitting, which is typically all taken care of by your contractor. And of course, batteries are not portable. So they're installed. If you move, you could probably move with it. But generally, solar panels and batteries, once you install these things, it's probably not going anywhere. So how to get started? Are these things affordable? Well, there are incentives available, as I said. So the Green Bank and Eversource and UI offer, there's actually two different incentives. The Green Bank's incentive is a little richer than that available through just the utilities. But essentially, customers can get up to $7,500 off the installation of a battery with some added incentives for low-income customers or certain folks who experience more power outages than usual. These incentives, when accessed through an eligible contractor and paired with financing, can make batteries within reach for most folks. So again, on the financing, for those who qualify for tax credits, low-cost financing options are available for solar, battery storage, and even partly some roof replacement too. Because again, most residential customers, if you want a battery, it's really best to pair that with solar panels. So you can save money with solar, it's accessible, and you can pair that with a battery to make your system even more resilient to give you that access to power when the grid is down. And this is primarily done for most people through what's called a solar lease or power purchase agreement. So in that case, that's really the most common way for folks to go solar. So some companies offer these long-term financing agreements where you don't own the system, it's owned by a third party, and you essentially just rent it. You pay a monthly fee or you pay a set price based on the energy that the solar panels produce. And you can add batteries to that system for an additional monthly price. And so you can have solar, save money with solar, and you can have batteries when you really need them, when there is a grid outage. So for the next steps on how to get started, we always recommend start with an HES audit, Home Energy Solutions, which is administered by the utility companies. And they would send out a contractor that can do a full energy audit of your home, help you save money on heating, cooling, water, electricity, all things energy really, and they can help make your home a more efficient place. Next, you can find a battery installer on energystorageCT.com. Most of those battery installers also install solar. Although most solar, not all solar contractors install batteries. So we recommend if you're looking for solar plus storage, start with a battery list because you're going to know that those folks can install batteries for you, and almost all of them do solar as well. And again, as a reminder, additional incentives are available for low income and underserved communities that can help, excuse me, that can help make it more affordable for you to go solar and to get a battery installed. So mention that if you think you qualify, or if you're interested in that, mention that to your contractor or reach out to the Green Bank, and we can make sure that you'll have access to the incentives that are available to you. So with that, we can jump into questions here. So we'll give it a moment here if anyone has any questions. And just as a reminder, we do have, we are recording this webinar, so we will send out a recording. We'll make that available. You can share that. All right, actually, let's see, we got a question here. Let me pull this out. What kind of permitting is needed and from where? Local or the utility? The answer is both. So when you install solar panels, it's going to be a local permit with your town. And typically a contractor takes care of all of this for you, so you really don't have to do much. When you permit a solar panel system, it should not increase your property tax assessment. So I think there was a question, I'm kind of combining two answers here. Let me pull this question out here. So while it does, it may increase the value of your home, there is a property tax exemption for solar panels, so you don't pay taxes on the solar panels themselves. The permitting goes through your town. Prices and the cost and involvement for permitting will really vary quite a bit from town to town. But from the utility, it's a pretty standard, straightforward process. It's $200 for the application, and barring any significant issues with adding a generator to your circuit, it's not too burdensome. Are all homes compatible with solar panels if they receive enough sunlight to benefit from solar? That's a great question, and unfortunately, no, not all homes are good candidates for solar. The best way to know really is just if you have a roof that faces south, east, or west, you can be in a pretty good spot to do solar. If you've got a lot of sunlight that comes down on your roof during the daytime, then you'd be a good candidate. Homes that have a lot of shading from nearby trees or other structures really aren't going to be the best. So again, that's something that when you work with a solar installer, they'll tell you. Any good solar installer will tell you, whether it's really worth your time to install solar panels. Really, if your system can be efficient enough based on your site. Next question here, is the Green Bank an installer? What does the organization do in this process? So again, great question. The Green Bank is a quasi-state agency, and what we do is we help people find these solutions. So we administer the rebates that help folks install batteries at their home. We actually used to administer the rebates for solar, but that's now shifted to the utility companies. But we connect customers to incentives and financing and help them actually make this happen for their home. But we do have a list of installers on our website. So we can, if you go to energystoragect.com, you can get the full list. I already have solar panels. Can I add a battery? Also a great question. That's something you would have to work out with a contractor. So if you go to the contractor list at energystoragect.com, you can find the list of contractors, and the short answer is yes, you can just add a battery to your existing solar system. But sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. It depends how your system is wired. It depends how your home is wired, and really how it's how ready it is to just add a battery. So it's going to depend on your exact system and, you know, kind of the ability of the installer to do that. The average lifespan of solar panels and batteries. So solar panels almost all come with a 20-year warranty. That's pretty much an industry standard to have an output warranty for 20 years, meaning that they won't break down. They will degrade a little bit. So over that 20-year period, they will produce a little bit less power. So, you know, expect to get at least 20 years of life out of your system. Batteries have a warranty of about 10 years. But, you know, as we all know with our iPhones, and, you know, if you have an electric vehicle or, you know, laptop, anything with a lithium-based battery, they do degrade over time, and they do degrade a little bit quicker than, say, a solar panel would. So, you know, over a 10-year period, the total capacity of that battery will degrade. But participation in the Green Bank's battery incentive program does require a 10-year warranty on the equipment. So you should expect to get at least 10 years out of it. And a range of costs for batteries, also a great question. So what we've seen, and again, keep in mind, this is without financing, and this is without incentives and tax credits so far. What we've seen is that the average customer, the average battery system in this program has a total price tag of close to $30,000, which is very expensive. We understand. So after incentives, you can take $7,500 off of that. And then there's a 30% federal tax credit, which, you know, in about a year's time, you would get about a third of that back. And then if you pair that with low interest financing, it can be it can be a doable thing. You know, but we understand that not everyone wants to, or, you know, can even access federal tax credits. Not everyone wants to have a $150, $200 loan every month. That's certainly not a negligible amount of money. So what we're seeing coming onto the market are contractors and financing organizations that offer leasing, or they can bundle in the price of a battery with a lease. We're expecting to see these types of financing opportunities come to market probably in the second half of this year, to be more widely available, where a customer can go solar and they can add a battery to that system for, you know, $10, $20 a month, which, you know, again, is not a negligible amount of money, but it's within reason for someone, you know, to whom backup power is important. So expect to see that, I'd say, this summer or a little bit later. And, you know, we look forward to helping make this technology more accessible and affordable to folks. So yeah, so let's see if we have any more questions here. We had some good ones here. I think I answered the one on increasing taxes. The answer is no, it does not. So yeah, so again, energystorageCT.com. You can find a contractor. You can learn more. You know, folks, they all provide free estimates. It's a great way to, you know, you can get started by just getting in touch with a few contractors, or if you have any questions about, you know, kind of how to make this happen, you can reach out to the Connecticut Green Bank. We have a contact page on that website. So let's see if we've got any others. I think that might do it for questions. Let's see. Rudy, Kayla, any additional questions before we adjourn?
No, I think our acts were great. Sorry, Rudy.
No, I think we were both going to say the same thing. I think those were great questions. I think.
Oh, I think we got one more.
One more popped in there, Ed. Yeah.
So this last question here, I've heard there's a possibility in the future energy companies may stop giving credits to solar customers. That is a real thing that happens, and it actually kind of already has happened in Connecticut somewhat. Not so much that it's gone away, but that it's changed. So in the past, it used to be that if you would get solar panels, you would just get a 1-for-1 retail rate for all the energy that you produced and sent off to the grid. You would just get that energy credited back on your electric bill. Things are a little bit different now, and I'll be honest, they're a lot more complicated, where essentially it works essentially the same, where you do get credited, you still get credited monthly for the energy that you produce, but it's based on dollar value instead of being based on the amount of energy, like in the form of kilowatt hours. So it's similar, but not quite the same. But the good thing is that when you get this type of an arrangement with the utility company, when you get that, it's called a net metering agreement or a monthly netting agreement, you enter into a long-term contract. So in that case, there actually is not a possibility of the utility company changing their mind and pulling that from you, because you're entering into a long-term contract and they agree to pay you based on the terms of that agreement. So it is a secure thing to do when you get solar, and you don't have to worry about the rug being pulled out from you. And yes, the recording will be available on our website. Oh, actually, I got one more question here. Is there any negative environmental exposure with solar panels? I assume you're talking about the equipment itself. I mean, the equipment is recyclable at the end of its life, and there are recycling facilities to dispose of old solar panels, if that's what you're asking. But the equipment itself, when it's on your roof and when it's installed and operating, I'm not aware of any risks or known risks, other than, of course, it's electrical equipment, so you got to be careful if you're touching it or going near it. The equipment itself doesn't, put off any emissions or toxic fumes or anything like that would need to be of any concern. Okay, actually, we still have some questions coming in. I have a new roof. Do the panels harm a roof? No, if they're installed by a good quality installer, they put the footings right into the rafters, they flash around them, so any rainwater will be shed right off and it won't go into the home. It's very rare that you get a leak with a solar panel system because of the way that they're installed, with caulking and flashing around the footings. They won't harm the roof. They actually cover it up so the panels will actually get exposed to the elements before your roof shingles will. So if you have a new roof, it's a great time to go solar, because then you won't have to worry about changing your roof or changing your shingles for 20 or more years. So if you have a new roof, it's actually a good thing to consider. And if you're wanting to go solar, you should consider the age of your roof. So we've had some great questions coming in, so I appreciate it. So I think that might be it. So with that, we will make the recording available. We'll post it on the Green Bank's website. I'm not sure if OpFuel is going to send anything out, but we'll definitely make sure everyone who attended and who registered can see a recording of this webinar. So thanks everyone for joining and for the great questions, and thanks to Rudy and Emily and Kayla for helping put this all together. So thanks a lot, everyone, and have a good night.